My father fought in the European theater in Italy during World War II and survived a B-24 crash. And this has been a big part of our family, and I'm really here for him today and wearing a B-24 pin just to commemorate him and all the sacrifices that those men made.
Thank you, sir.
Airport in Normandy today.
Exactly.
Thank you.
I'm Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee, and I represent the great city of Houston in the 18th Congressional District in the great state of Texas. Well, having come before at the time that President Obama was returning here in 2009, for me it is the very simple words, we can never forget. And now more than ever in this moment, I felt the strength of those words, the power of those words, the emotion of those words, that the nation must never forget. We have a new generation of young people, college students, new Americans, and it is our duty to let them know of the greatness of this generation, but more importantly, how America has always been a defender, not an offender, but a defender. And for me, D-Day represents the purest of what we are, and our strong and consistent fight for freedom, but not selfishly for ourselves. We fight for freedom for others. We must never forget. Well, the good news, and I think the message we should give to the American people, is that we are Americans. We are like them. My three uncles with a widow mother were in World War II. And my oldest uncle served in the theater in Ethiopia. So for me, part of it is personal. As a member of Congress, however, having gone to the wars of my time as a member of Congress, meaning Iraq and Afghanistan, and going into the theater there, and knowing what war is, and what it does to our men and women, in this instance, what it did to the men in World War II, what it does to the families, it is important for Congress to be an informed patriot and an advocate for our military in a way that assists them both in battle and restoration and recovery, but also gives them the appropriate appreciation. Obviously, part of that appreciation is understanding factually how to appropriate dollars. And you can only do that effectively if you see, you understand, and you feel. Coming to D-Day, one gets to feel the history of yesteryear, but it translates into the life of today. Again, this was a very emotional time for me, but it's also very informative. And it gives me a greater message when I speak to my constituents, when I speak on the floor of the House, when I speak to the nation, as I'm listened to when we debate. And that's what I think is crucial. The story must always be told. D-Day is a story that we should never forget. Although many other wars throughout our history, this one, as I look at the waters and I'm reminded of the 9,000 crosses and the command to come ashore in the massive way that they did without thought of their own safety and security. They just offered themselves a sacrifice on behalf of the American people. We must never forget. And I think Congress, seeing this, makes us their ally in their fight.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
I'm Congressman G.K. Butterfield. That's G.K. Butterfield, 1st District of North Carolina, Chief Deputy Whip of the House Democratic Caucus. But we're not here today as Democrats. We're here today as Americans. Yes, yes. Well, I'm here today at the invitation of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and I'm so glad that I was able to travel to come to this historic place. We do a lot of great things in this country, but one of the greatest things that we do is to remember our veterans and to celebrate and to honor those who have given their lives for the freedoms that we now enjoy. And today is a perfect demonstration of our gratitude to our nation's veterans. World War II was a defining moment in American history. And the men who came upon these shores and defended our country, some came home and many of them did not. They have sacrificed so that we can be free today. I'm honored to be here to celebrate this 75th anniversary. Well, every year we appropriate money to the Department of Defense to fund the military, and all 435 of us in the House of Representatives need to get out of town once in a while and see what's really happening in the world. And once you visit a military base or an installation, you will see that we have the finest and most well-prepared military in the world. I'm proud of our military. I'm proud of our veterans. I'm proud of our nation's history with respect to keeping this country safe.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
One statement that was made today was particularly profound for me. One of the speakers said that these 18 and 19-year-old men left their wives and their mothers and fathers and came to war. Some volunteered and many of them were just drafted and willingly gave of themselves. And 9,388 are buried in this land, and many of them are back in the States. And when you just pause to think about 18 and 19-year-old men giving of themselves for America's freedom, I'm just honored to be here.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Right.
Congressman Jeff Fortenberry from Lincoln, Nebraska, the 1st Congressional District of Nebraska. Well, first of all, right where we're standing on June 6th of 1944, wave upon wave of young men gave their lives for some fundamentals, for higher things. This notion of self-sacrifice, giving one's life even potentially in service to another, to keep our ideals of freedom and liberty, but most importantly, that deeper set of values of family and meaning and even love and commitment. This is why we are remembering today. This is why we celebrate remembrance. This is why it's so somber and yet so at the same time joy-filled, because it's an occasion to be uplifted, to remember those who died, to honor those who gave their all, but to continue this tradition in the future so that we never forget. A few miles from here as well, my own grandfather gave his life in the war. So this has a particularly special meaning for me being here today. It's a continuity of history. We cannot forget the noble ideals of self-sacrifice. What came before us gives us what we have today. The great gift of people willing, out of love, to protect their families and as a whole to protect their nation against tyranny, against barbarism, to uphold the principles of civilization. We take these things for granted. Unless we remember, unless we carry forward in time their sacrifice by honoring their graves and having beautiful ceremonies like today, we may lose that connectedness. That's why we do this over and over and over. And it also reminds us of the deeper, higher things, the meaningful things that ultimately last, the things that touch the soul.
And you mentioned that your grandfather gave his life here?
Yes.
World War II?
Yes.
On D-Day or after?
He was killed in November of '44. He was buried at Sainte-Mère-Église, the little town near here where their paratroopers came in the night before D-Day. He was a medical doctor, was killed in an explosion. All the earlier cemeteries were consolidated here at Omaha Beach in 1948. He was reinterred in Arlington in Washington, D.C. But again, it's not only an extraordinary privilege for me to be here as a member of Congress representing Nebraskans, representing our country, but also my own family and that collective memory that we have, that we carry forward, that I try to pass on to my own children, of my own grandfather's sacrifice.
And is there anything else that you would like to talk about or mention?
I just think it was a beautiful gift to have President Trump here, gave an extraordinary speech, especially commending the World War II veterans who are here with us. I think a particularly poignant moment, though, was when President Macron of France said, "I bow before you," speaking to the depth of gratitude that the French still have to what America did for them.
And what else are you doing this week in commemoration?
Well, there's an international ceremony that many members will attend. We'll go back to Paris as well and have dialogue with French officials as well as our embassy. I have a special project. There is a chateau here that actually housed the headquarters of the German Army. The person who owns it is interested in turning that into a foundation for the commemoration of the battle and the commemoration of what came after the war. In other words, the international institutions that were made possible by World War II that's given us stability to today. So that's a special project that I'll be engaged with.
All right.